Nick, how you doing? Welcome to this is our Friday with Friends. Thank you for joining us today. This is really all about just like talking, telling your story, highlighting you. We got a few questions and just letting the hemp industry, the hemp cannabis industry, or anyone else who's paying attention, what you're doing and what your contribution is. I think that there's a lot of stories in this industry that aren't being told. It's all the conversations about either a few things or a few products or a few types of people. But there's a lot of people and a lot of different hands that make this industry work. And we just want to spotlight and show some of those hands and give people an idea of what's going on, in and around the industry. So
absolutely.
Welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm tickled to be here. So I'm glad to be able to answer any and all things. So there's nothing off the table. As long as you don't talk ugly about the good Lord or my mama, you and I'll be fine. So we can just
all right. Go open that door. I might ask some crazy questions. We won't be talking about the Lord or your mama today.
Okay, good. Then we're already to a great start.
That's the Saturday show. So, tell us about yourself, your story, your background, kind of what led you to this hemp industry.
Yeah, well, so I think we all have probably had a hemp aha moment somewhere, probably along our various journeys like that. Mine did not come until just a couple of years ago. I spent a career in and out of politics here in Mississippi, where I am, and also during part of that, I had a tour of duty as the state director of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Office of Rural Development. And the rural development state directors, there's one in almost every state. Some states share a director, but those are presidential appointees. And so I was appointed during the Bush 43 administration and did rural economic development is the main part of that part of USDA. So it's the non-farm, non-food part. But one of those divisions within what USDA does is called, it strictly deals with cooperative developments and how cooperatives come together and how they all work. And so I learned a lot about co-ops that way. And after my tenure at USDA, as I still do, I've got a grant writing firm, and I also do some business development work where I help rural economic development projects try to figure out how they get funded and how they put together those things. So kind of bringing all that to the table, I came across some guys that were trying to do some hemp processing, and that's really kind of where I got a hold of it and started to ask those questions as I was taught to do. Those due diligence questions like, okay, well, if we're going to borrow the money, how are we getting paid back? Because I ain't met a banker yet that didn't want to get paid back, right? So how does all that work and how does that come together? And tell me more about, but what I kept noticing in all that, Derek, is that as I did more and more due diligence and more research, it looked like there was one consistent thing that was going on, and that was that the farmers were getting screwed, that the landowners were the people who either had contracts that weren't worth the paper they were printed on, or they ran out there and didn't really know what they were doing and tried to, in the whole green gold rush time, and lost a lot of money. So I said, there's got to be a better way that there can be a bottom up organization that no matter who you are, no matter how much land you have, no matter, where you are, you could have an opportunity to participate in this burgeoning world called hemp. And the more we learned about all the cajillion things that the plant will do, and as we're coming out of this Rip Van Winkle mode of no research to speak of, or nobody really understanding anything and trying to remember what somebody else has done, I just think all those pieces pulled together really made it for an interesting time. And so that's why we've developed the National Hemp Growers Cooperative.
I think this is good work. And you hit on something where, like, just even now, like, you talk about stuff like all this about hemp, or you ask questions and everything is anecdotal. It's anecdotal. Like, nothing is really concrete or based in science. And we're starting to see in the last week or so, all these studies coming out that got everybody excited about, its impact on COVID and blah, blah. And if for nothing else, I hope that stirs the pot as far as let's dig into this plant. We all understand that it's helping people. Clearly, even if it was THC rich, cannabis deaths are the numbers very low. You know what I mean? So
right. And
yeah.
so, that's why our focus really is not on the CBD portion. Our focus really is on grain and fiber, and
Really?
probably even more fiber than it would be grain, because there are so many things that it can do. Particularly, so our whole focus in the co-op is building wealth for our members through regenerative agriculture and a sustainable development. Those are that's our litmus test about anything and everything we do. If it can't meet that test, then we're probably not going to be interested in doing it.
That's good work. I mean, I personally, I'm a chef by trade. You say regenerative agriculture, and it beckons something in me that, of course, like food, but this is just important. Like, this is a consumable product. These are things that people are putting in their bodies. I also am from the South, from North Carolina. As you know, like you've probably watched in the last 20 or 25 years, the plight of not just the farmer, the factory, where it's all changed. You know what I mean? It seems like the power's been taken out of their hands, where this was the driver of this whole nation, really, the farmer. And so it's kind of unusual, like what we've done for them or to them, and it's kind of nice to hear you and your organization sort of being like a wall of defense to stand up for them and protect them.
Right. Well, and thank you for that. But I mean, that's why we call this the Growers Cooperative and not the Farmers Cooperative, because there are a lot of people in the industry, particularly some that maybe have heirs land, or people that have not been in a second, third generation, multi-thousand acre production agriculture world, who would like to participate in what's going on with this hemp industry. And they would like to figure out, how do I get involved in that? How do I get started? And maybe I've got 17 acres out here that my, grandmother left to my mother, and now I've got it after I fought off 28 cousins, and now I own the land. And so I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it. Well, they're not necessarily going to go plant, all that in cotton or soybeans or sorghum or corn or something like that. And the input costs of what it would cost them to be able to get up to speed to have the yield for all of that. Hemp lends itself, particularly in a cooperative model, where you don't have to have all of that super capital expenditure on the front end, where you can share those resources with others. But then somebody's got to be able to give you some kind of an idea of what the genetics are of the seed that will grow where you are, right? The temperate zone is going to determine all those things. If you live in Montana, it's altogether different about what you're going to be able to do. But if you live in North Carolina or Vermont. So pulling all those pieces together, that's really why we call it the Growers Cooperative, because we've got people who are newbies who don't know very much about growing, but want to be a part of it. But in order to reach scale of what we really need to do to get the supply where it needs to be, we've got to have those super larger production agriculture people who are really into it. And hemp is primarily, as we're learning more and more about it, is really good as a rotation crop. Instead of it being just this, because not only all the regenerative things it does to the soil and as a bioremediator, but also because the supply is such that if you grew 1,000 acres, 5,000 acres, of hemp, you really better hope you're near some processing facility that's already written you a check for that hemp before it ever gets put in the ground. And we're not there yet, I don't think, in the industry in the United States. No. We're getting there every day. We're getting there more and more every day. So learning those things, we really ask kind of three questions, which is, how does this fit into what you're currently doing? What you're growing right now and what you're doing, does it fit into what you're currently doing? If you're not doing anything, then that changes the dynamics of the conversation. If you're already growing in some other way, then that changes the dynamic of the conversation. And then the second thing would be, what grows where you are? The further north that you go in the United States, the better shot you have of knowing what genetics are going to work, because the closer you get to Canada, because Canada's 2 decades ahead of the US and being able to grow, the more that you will understand what those genetics are. And so, I mean, even in all of Canada, sidebar here, even in all of Canada, there's like 148,000 acres of hemp that were grown last year. Wow. For canola, like, right, Mr. Chef, for the canola oil industry, there were 30 million acres of canola grown in Canada last year. Okay. So when we talk about all the knowledge that Canada has and all the fiber and all the plants that were grown, 146,000 compared to 30 million, you know, I went to public school and I don't do much math, but I'm just telling you, that ain't nothing, okay, compared to the whole mix of that. So when you start getting down into those lower tier temperate zones, or the higher number temperate zones that go down into the southeastern US in particular, there's just a whole lot of knowledge that we don't have. So that second question is, what will grow where you are? And the third question is who's going to buy it before you ever put the seed in the ground? And if you don't know the answer to those questions, you can figure it out on your own. It's America. Or you can come along with some of the rest of us who are all trying to figure out those pieces as well too. And so that's really the exciting part of what we're doing with the cooperative, is that those dividend payments, no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter how many acres you grow, you've got an opportunity to participate.
That's really, really powerful. That's really, because you don't really hear a lot of that. In today's world, we talk about big business not giving little guy an opportunity. You hear that a lot. You hear that from little people. You hear that definitely from our rural constituents, you know. But you seems like this is not so much a lobbying organization. You're actually an ally. Like, you are trying to show people how to be successful in this business.
That's exactly right. We're not a lobbying group. We're not a trade association. Okay, that's not who we are. There are some great groups that are really doing a really good job for that. We participate with a lot of that. The Global Hemp Association, for example, I'm on their board of directors and chair their production agriculture committee. And so we're 100% rah-rah behind them, and they're great regional groups that are doing good things as far as walking the halls of the state houses and being able to understand those. You know, that's just not our thing. Our deal is trying to connect people who wish to be a part of the industry, ultimately who are growing the crop. And then in addition to that, we also have opportunities for people who just want to invest in what we're doing because they like the whole thing about regenerative ag, or they like the whole idea about sustainable development. And they really want to know, how do they get in on some value added component piece that supports our growers. And so we've got different components, and we can get into as much of that as you'd like to, but I mean, we're not a lobbying group, and we're not a trade association. We support trade associations because we think things like that are going to help the industry as a whole, and that certainly will help us and end up helping our grower. But our litmus test is just that. As I said earlier, it's about building wealth for our members. We're not talking about writing them a check or making them a profit. We're talking about building wealth for them, and doing that through regenerative ag and through sustainable development. And if it doesn't meet those litmus tests, we're not interested in it.
How does the co-op itself benefit?
Well, the co-op benefits because the members are the co-op, right? I mean, so what happens is we have two different types of stockholders. One are common stockholders, who are people who have a license to grow hemp. They get one vote per licensee. Okay, so you could be growing 1 acre or 1,000 acres, doesn't matter. You're getting one vote. We built the model for the governance of all of that as much more of a republic model than a democracy model. And so you have a say-so in a group of delegates who elect a national board. And then that board is the one that manages and is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the cooperative. Then we have preferred stockholders, who are folks who have just said, man, I love what you guys are doing about bioenergy. And I love what you guys are doing about, hempcrete and bioplastics and how we can, put all those great omega-3s that come in the hemp grains, that can be a part of that. We love all of that, but we're not farmers. We don't know how to grow it, but we sure would like to be a part of all of it. And so there are preferred stockholders who would buy into the cooperative. Then the way we've got it set up through our business model is that there are value-added production facilities, right? Commercialization that would take that raw part of the plant, whether it was decorticated fiber, or whether it was getting the grain out of it or whatever it is they're going to be able to use for it. And then that entity itself would be a separate business unit, and the cooperative will always own between 20 to 25% of that unit.
Wow.
And then they also will own 20 to 25% of the next unit. So if I'm in Western PA and we're making hemp pellets for people to put into their stoves or to put in their heating units, okay, then that Western PA hemp pellets business unit, an LLC or whatever it will end up being, it doesn't mean that I have to live within the 85 to 100 miles of that facility to supply hemp to that facility in order for my dividend payments to come in. I could be living in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and I could be growing out there for what we're doing for a textile facility or something that we're growing for out there. And so if you are a grower, even if you're somewhere in the middle and you don't necessarily have a huge place for your crop to be purchased, you could still be growing and learning and understanding about how to do it. You might find something on the local level until we can kind of get to you, until those things develop. But my dividend check as a co-op member is going to come in from each one of those facilities anywhere across the US. Then I get a double dip if I happen to live within that footprint of where that facility is, because then the co-op is actually purchasing my hemp to be able to bring into that commercialization facility. So it's not totally dependent on where you live in order for you to make money. And then we also have an opportunity because of the inputs. If we've done our job right, then the input costs for you to do your farming, from insurance to seed cost to just the knowledge of the agronomy of how to grow and what to do and where to do, the harvesting equipment, the planting equipment. It's not going to work everywhere for everybody each time, but we at least are going to be able to know that in clusters, we would be able to use those resources to bring those costs down for any one of those growers. So by having my inputs be lower, as well as having markets for my crop, plus having a dividend payment that is involved with all of the processing facilities anywhere and everywhere throughout the US, you start adding up those nickels and dimes and you end up making a pretty good, a good return.
And you're actually building what the industry needs, which is like infrastructure. This is the problem, and you could tell me this better than probably anyone else. Like we're seeing the focus on cannabinoids. You're saying that your organization's focus has been more on fiber and grain, and you kind of just talked about some of those upcoming products that we'll probably be buying, consuming, what have you, in the next few years. And I see why that focus is there. I think what you're saying is that there's more potential in those areas. You see more potential for consumer goods in those areas.
No doubt, because the fiber alone will do so many things with the fiber itself, that gives us more opportunity. And you watch the CBD market and the cannabinoid market far, far better than we, but it's in and out, and there's a glut, and then there's, what's that all going to settle out, and what's that going to look like? And sitting around, we don't have to sit around and wait on the FDA to be able to put in a decortication plant in order to put hemp-based fiberglass ish, fibers into automotive machine, into like BMW is doing right now with hemp in Germany. I mean, they're putting it in body panel parts, right? I mean, we're making batteries out of it. I mean, they're making, bricks, hemp bricks made from hempcrete plus other waste materials. We've got a partnership with a group in Denver right now that is making has a brick that they have been able to make with hempcrete, right? So that's just, right. It's just the fiber. I mean, it's lime and water, and then they're using fly ash that's left over from coal-fired power plants.
Wow.
And they're putting all that together and mushing it together. That's a technical term. Mushing it all together in a brick. And
What's on that?
they put it on a, they've got a video of it where they just stuck a blowtorch on it for an hour and it never burned, right? Totally, I mean, so building materials, all those things, that kind of stuff, Derek, can happen way sooner than waiting for the FDA to get the smiley faces put on whether they're going to allow, CBD to get a better attaboy on it so that the big boxes will start putting it on their shelves. So
what is holding this part of the industry back, you think?
It's two things. You mean on the fiber production?
Yes.
It's the actual production itself. It's the decortication units, and it's the amount of fiber that is available versus who wants it, right? So Patagonia would tell you that they'll take all that you can get them, right? But there's probably only about 6 or 7 places in the United States, probably even less than that, that are really in the business of decorticating that fiber, right?
Wow.
And separating, right, the fiber from the herd and the rest of that to do. So the demand continues to grow. The more that people understand about what you can do just for building products. The thing is that you don't want to mess up your carbon footprint on all of this, because what you don't want to do is have a decortication facility that's 300 miles away and you've you've screwed up your carbon footprint because you've been hoofing it over there, right, by trucking it over. So it's really going to be about a regional thing, and the industry's got so much potential in it. There's there is what's the term? My friend Jamie Campbell Petty, who you really ought to get on your show, who is the head of the Midwest Hemp Council out of Indianapolis. Jamie uses this word cooperation. Okay, so we're cooperating with each other, but we're also in competition with each other. But the market is so large that these regional decortication facilities is really where we're headed. So who is willing to write the big checks to be able to put in one of these facilities until you know that you've got an offtake agreement for what's getting processed on the back end? And so we're still in the growth mode about that. That's a long answer to your short question, which is where are the chokeholds? But I think it's the production end of it, and it is the more standardized things come. The U.S. Hemp Building Association has done a very good job, and I have filed for code verification that you could be able to use hempcrete and others in residential building, but they're a year away before that process takes place. They filed everything, but then they've got to wait until all of that goes through its regular processes through the building codes folks to be able to get a universal component approval for that. So
I think consumers are going to eat this up. No pun intended, but this really touches a lot of people. As far like what people want to hear is this is going to be cheaper, it's going to be more effective, it's safer. It's like it's hitting all those notes. It's hitting all of them, and I think people are going to embrace it. We may be looking at a totally different form of American architecture 20, 30 years from now.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to be quicker than that. I think it's
really?
because I think people are looking for that sustainable development. People want to know that they are. I mean, look, they're using hemp as a replacement for rebar. Okay, I mean, so wow. there are so many things. Again, it's that Rip Van Winkle mode. There are all these things that I believe our foremothers and fathers knew about what the plant would do, but it all just went underground for all those reasons that we know that it did. And but the whole world about all the uses of that were not along the cannabinoid end. It was all on the fiber side. Right. And the grain was really getting fed. I mean, you know, there's a whole hemp feed coalition, and they're all about making sure that again, the FDA has to approve that through their veterinary sciences end. But before you can actually feed hemp to an animal that you will then turn around and eat, that all has to have approval from the FDA. And so they've got a whole process right now for laying hens to say, you know, well, what would you do if you had, what else would this do to the proteins and the other things that are involved in eggs? Well, there's all kinds of great research that backs all of that up. It's just that the demand is growing at the same time that the science is trying to meet together with the marketplace. And so it's a really great time to get involved in the hemp industry. If you're looking to make some quick money, don't put it here, okay? Right. But if you're looking to say, look, I'd like to put some money in now, I'd like to get in on the front end of these things. I love to see how these things are being developed and being watched. It's a great time to be a part of all of that, I think.
Well, I've been asking this question a lot. You know, we're going to use your term grower. What is the future of the American hemp grower? It's a two-part question, because really that's the second part of the question. The first part is we talked about how America is going to compete a little bit globally. Like, where are we in comparison to China? Because like every report I've ever heard is that they're focused on fiber and grain, and we're focused on cannabinoids. But you're preaching a different gospel. So where are we in that relationship with them?
Oh, we're behind China. Okay, number one, okay. For sure. Okay, we're behind Europe for sure. Okay, wow. As far as it relates to fiber and grain. But of course, I don't really believe all the stuff you hear coming out of China, because you don't really know what they're telling you is the truth anyway. That's the truth. You do not know whether they're telling you the truth.
It's all geopolitical. You never know.
No, it's not a political statement. I'm just saying.
No, I'm talking about their messaging. It's all about positioning themselves in the world, in a sense, like some of this stuff.
I'm telling you. So no. So you don't really know what that's coming from. We're leery, quite frankly, of the genetics of some of the seed that come from out of there, because we're not sure that it's consistent. As I mean, it can grow in the U.S., but we don't know that you know that you know. Right. And so no, we're behind certainly in what they are doing, and they're able to see it as all the uses of the fiber in particular, certainly some of the grain, but definitely in the fiber piece. And Europe is way ahead of us on building materials and understanding what it can be done. And they move things quicker over there than we move things over here. And it's just a lot like things like cannabinoids or being able to approve grains quicker than that. I've had some ongoing conversation with a guy who is creating a hemp cooperative in Latvia, and he's getting a lot of free advice from me, which is worth exactly what he's paying for it. But I mean, we're telling, you know, they see the idea about, well, we've got to find a better way for our growers to be a part of all of that. So it's the markets, who's going to pay for it. My experience in working with what I would call farmers and not growers. Okay, and I say that only to say, farmers are about the business of, you know, this is what they do every day. Growers are trying to kind of get into some farming. And so we want both, but we that's why we stretch it across and call it our growers. Most, you know, a lot of farmers I know, they plant peppermint sticks if you told them it was going to yield some money, and they figured out they're going to make money off of it. And you show me how to do it and where the market is, how much are my inputs, how much does it cost for me to do it? How much capital expenditure do I have to put into the harvesting equipment, and who's going to pay me for it? And we don't have consistently throughout the United States answers to all of those questions. I think we are at least one more grow season maybe even 2 before we can answer that to enough scale to go back to enough growers and farmers and say, okay, this is what we need. We need 500 acres from you. Now, there are people that are doing really good jobs of that, particularly on those northern tiers, right? And those northern, so IND Hemp out of Fort Benton, Montana, there are great Americans up there and they're doing a great job. Their model is different than ours. Theirs is we offer a farmer a contract, and the contract, and they grow, for the contract that they are putting for not only their grain, but also they're putting in a 5 million ton a day decortication facility up there. And so they're doing tremendous work up there. And so if you get a good contract from good people like that, you're in good shape. Okay. Our model is just different. Our model is built from, is built from the bottom up, and we contract with ourselves and then compared to doing that other model, but they both can be very effective if you've got good people.
Well, we're getting close. So what's the absolute best part of your job? Like, what makes this all work for you?
I love seeing the aha moment come on in people's minds that say, I had no idea that this plant could do that. And the first thing that folks would say a lot of times is, oh, you in a business of where you smoking all your profit. Well, no, that's not who we are. Okay. That's not a moral statement or a judgment statement. This is just, we're focused on these products, and people understand, even if they have not necessarily call themselves an environmentalist or somebody that might not think of themselves in that way, people understand we have got to do things differently than we have done them before. Right. And so all of those are things that make my job interesting and fun. And when we know that there are growers that say, oh my gosh, I had no idea I had this opportunity to participate, I love that, because then now we get to be that conduit for them.
That's right. Fun. That's right. I love it. You guys are doing fantastic work. This has been educational for me, because I thought that we were going to be talking, you meet people, you read on their background, you talk about, well, they must be doing this. It's a co-op. I had a totally different impression of how this was going to go. So this has been quite surprising and quite enlightening. And I thank you. I really do. I know that you don't necessarily have anything to sell per se, but if you want to take a minute to highlight or anything that you guys are working on right now that you want the world to know, the spotlight is on you. So please take it.
Well, terrific. Well, anybody that wants to know more about what we're doing can certainly go back to our website at nationalhempcoop.us. We are a national cooperative, even though we're headquartered in the South. That is not where we're putting all of our footprint or where all we're staying. And so that's important for us to know that people know where. Do we need to redo?
That's my granddaughter. She's good. She don't care about what I'm doing.
Okay, I know. Neither does my wife. That's why I turn my phone off. So that may be some of your editing pieces. No, we don't. We want folks who, if they have some land and they would like to be, they're interested in participating as a grower, we want to let them come be with us as we figure out this industry together, to answer those 3 questions about how does it fit what you're currently doing, what grows where you are, and who's going to buy your crop. We want to be with you to help you figure those things out at whatever level where you might be. And so it's a great time to be a part of all that. Or others that have just said, look, I'd like to be a part of what's going on in this hemp industry, but I don't really know where to plug in. We've got some places for you to plug in, particularly if you're looking for it along the investment route. And we've got those opportunities too for folks that want to do that. So
I get those questions too, and I'm gonna steer people your way.
Bring them. Come on.
I definitely will.
We'd like to have them be a part of all of that, and it's a really cool time to be a part of it.
It really is. So we're pretty much there. I'm gonna let you off the hook with one simple question.
Sure.
Southerner to Southerner, what does barbecue in Mississippi look like?
Well, it's not vinegar based like you're used to. Okay. Ours, and it's not really mesquitish like you would get back over towards Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ours is much more tomato based, and it's not as spicy as you might get where there's more of the pepper, flavors that would come from places like Texas, but
more Memphis-y, baby.
Oh yeah, way more Memphis-y than anywhere else. That would be
okay.
That would be our spot. So, heck yeah, man, we love it.
I mean, what is something like without barbecue?
I wouldn't want to know.
I don't know how vegans make it down here, man.
I don't know how they make it either. So if somebody that's never eaten a plate of collard greens, they don't know what that is. I hate it for them. That they would seriously. I'm not about collards now. I'm not talking about mustards or turnips. I'm not about collard greens. Okay?
There is a difference.
There's a big difference, and I'm a collards fan. Anyway, yes.
It's funny because I watched this whole kale awakening over the last 10 or 15 years. I'm like, people just discovering kale? Like, what's going on?
Right.
Oh man, we can laugh about that. So
that's right.
Nick, thank you so much. You are a wealth of knowledge. Yeah, we may have to have you back.
Love for you to be back, and we're showcasing people in the industry all the time too. We've got a podcast that we do that are just focusing on people that are involved in the industry, particularly on the grain and fiber side, and what markets are and what legal stuff's going on. So yeah, I mean, pop over to our website. We'd love for people to learn more about what we're doing.
Definitely.
And continue to find those great opportunities.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution to this industry. I hope to see your name in lights 10 years from now. This guy was here from the beginning. He's helped all these people. And I from what you told me today, I truly believe that's going to happen.
Well, as long as you don't see my face down at the post office, I'll be happy. So
hey,
what's that? I don't want anybody going up for the most wanted list where they're trying to get so there's that guy. I saw him one time on Derek's Friday Friends. He ain't a friend anymore, is he? There he is.
I'll be able to be on anybody's most wanted. I don't care how nice the list is. It could be the most wanted man. I don't want to be on no list. No.
No, thank you.
That's it. Hey, next time, hopefully we'll get to see each other face to face, and that will definitely be over some smoked pork and some greens.
Done.
Boom. All right.
Thank you.
You have a good evening.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.